We're doing a series, and the series is called What Cross Are You Carrying? And it comes from a scene in the Gospels where Jesus tells the disciples that he's going to die, and it's leading us into the Easter story, and I thought it was very appropriate. I had this message series planned out before any of this crisis developed, but nonetheless, I think you'll see it fits almost perfectly. And so let me read a couple verses to you. This is the story where Jesus asked the disciples, who do people say that I am? And then Peter says, well, you're the Christ. So Jesus asked the disciples, what are people saying? Some say you're Elijah, some say you're one of the prophets. And then Jesus says, but who do you say? And Peter says, you're the Christ. And then Jesus says to him, that's right, Peter. This wasn't revealed to you by men, but by my Father. And now this is really important that you get this. So Peter gets it. And then right after that, it says he began to explain to them that he would suffer many things and that he would be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, the teachers of the law. They would all reject him, and that he would be killed, and then he would rise again. And he spoke plainly to them about this. And so when he did that, Peter takes him aside and begins to rebuke him. Now, Peter had just answered the first one correctly. You're the Christ, right? And he said, that was revealed to you by my Father. And then he rebukes Jesus when he talks about dying and suffering. And we're going to get to this. This is the point of our message today. Why is it that you can get it right in 1 minute and then not get it right in the next minute? And I think, by the way, this is such an important thing for all believers. Many people, they get the believing part. Okay, I believe in you. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I believe you're the Christ, whatever the thing is. But there's so much more to the story. There's so much more to your story. There's so much more that God wants to do than to help you to get one right answer. Do you get what I'm saying? And so Jesus says, I'm going to suffer and I'm going to die. And Peter right away grabs him and rebukes him and says, no, you're not. And that's never going to happen to you. And then verse 33, Mark 8, Jesus says, he rebukes Peter and he says, get behind me, Satan. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men. In other words, another way of saying it is this. You're looking at this from a purely human vantage point. You're only looking at this through your own selfish eyes. Listen carefully, everybody. Today I want to talk to you about how to overcome human nature. Many times you hear me say, oh, that's human nature, and it's okay because we all have a human nature and we react in certain ways. And that is normal, it is natural, at least that's what we think on the surface. But is it possible that we could overcome human nature? We could overcome our tendencies to react in certain ways. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I get bad news, I don't react very well. Sometimes I use examples all the time, here at Orchard Grove about driving down 696 or driving down 275 and somebody cuts you off. And when that happens, you have a reaction, right? And even if you don't go off the handle or get into road rage, at least in here, you almost always have a reaction. And it's what you do with it, and it's how you handle it. Somebody says something rude to you. Somebody is mean to you, right? There's conflict at home. Somebody's short with you. Somebody doesn't pay attention to you. Somebody overlooks you. And then we have these reactions. And so today's story is about Peter's reaction. It's Peter's reaction to the news that Jesus says, I'm going to suffer and die. And he also goes on to tell them, you guys need to get ready because you're going to have to carry your own cross too. That's going to be a part of your story. You're going to carry a cross. And the reaction is, no, not me, not ever. And Jesus says, you're looking at this from the perspective of a human being. What if you had a different perspective, a divine perspective? And so I want to talk about how we can react in a different way. But think of this. Um, I'm personally like, I don't like the sight of blood. Is anybody like me? So if you don't like the sight of blood, and now if I saw myself bleeding, it, for whatever reason, it doesn't bother me. But if I see somebody else, I don't do well with it. I react poorly, right? And all of us have certain reactions to certain things that we see. And Jesus was teaching Peter how he was going to die, what was going to happen, but it was the reaction, and the reaction was, never, Lord. By the way, Peter reacts this way many times. If you follow later in the gospel stories, he's always overreacting. Now, we've got some news in our world today, and you have a reaction. You choose how you're going to react to what you hear, to what you see, how well you respond, how much it's going to disturb you. And so I want to, if I can, talk about your own first responder. So we have first responders out there right now, people in the front lines fighting this virus, fighting in hospitals, taking care of people, exposing themselves. I mean, there's a lot of great heroism that happens during crisis like this. And we applaud and we celebrate our first responders, as we should. They're amazing. But do you know you have your own inner first responder? The first response that you have when something difficult or negative comes your way. On a normal day, you go about your day. You don't think about food. You don't think about survival. Survival is not really an option. But what we do is we have this inner thing that goes on. And we feel attacked. We chase all that energy to the inside. Now, this is so important. Listen, for us to react differently, for us to react better, we have to retrain ourselves. Now, it starts with this, all right? First and foremost, be careful what you consume. Can I just say that? Don't just consume everything. That is to say, every news story, every single thing that you hear, because there is a lot of stuff that's out there. And in Proverbs it talks about this. A fool just consumes everything. But a wise person is discerning. And you got to listen to what happens, and then you discern, you listen to the other side, and you try to make thoughtful decisions. I mean, think about it. I mean, I'm not trying to put the news down, because they provide a great service many times when they bring us information that is a gift. But think about this. They have to sit there and fill 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Someone's in charge of that. Someone has to sit down at a desk and go, I got to have something up right here. This next hour block is coming. So they have to say something. Let me contrast it with like what I do, teaching. Someone told me this a long time ago. They said, some people teach because they have something to say, and some people teach because they have to say something. That is, another Sunday's coming. So I got to get something together. And you can tell the difference. When you have something to say, it comes from here. And I want to give you a message that matters. And this is what you need to be careful of. Don't just consume randomly everything, because you'll be running around frantic all the time. So be a discerner of what you consume. Just like with food, right? We're learning you can't just stuff anything edible into your body, but you should be discerning about what you eat. The same thing should be true of your spirit or your inner man or whatever you would call your mind, your soul. Take things in carefully. Don't just swallow it whole. And then how you digest it is everything. So what's a normal reaction? Fear, anger, resentment, hostility, violence. I mean, some people would say, well, of course that's normal. If someone cuts you off in traffic, of course you yell at them, or you gesture them, or whatever you do. But there's other ways. Several years ago, I went with a friend. This was a long time ago. And, I like to think frugal. Some people would say cheap, but I don't like to spend money on haircuts and all that kind of stuff. So I went down to a place where they were training people to give haircuts, because I don't care, right? And I brought a friend with me, and we sat. Certainly, these are the times that sort of wake us up. And really, that's what Peter needed. Peter needed to take his life to a different level. because he was only looking at it from a human level. Let's look. What Jesus was trying to tell Peter is there is another level that you can look at this from, a divine perspective, if you would call it that, right? A more mature level. But you have to go through the steps that get yourself to seeing life differently. You know what I found to be true? People that have endured some suffering, people that have been through some trials, they get it easier. They just do. It's easier for them to see things. But if you always got things your way, always got what you wanted, things were always going well for you, you never had any challenge, never had any difficulty, then it's very, very, very difficult when these things come our way. So here's what I'd like to leave you with about keys to sort of carrying your own cross. When Jesus says, you're going to have to carry your cross. 2 things I'll leave you with. First of all, don't cheat yourself. Don't cheat yourself. What do I mean by that? I mean, when Jesus goes through the temptation, he's told, turn these stones into bread, right? Jump from this building and have the angels rescue you. They're all shortcuts. And man, are we tempted to take shortcuts in life. But when you take shortcuts, you're not cheating anyone else. You're not cheating God. You're cheating yourself. That's who loses when you take a shortcut. And so part of the temptation that Jesus goes through is it's a temptation to cheat himself. Not so that God will be mad or happy with him. I think that misses the point entirely. My mom always tells me, we all love this Special K with red berries cereal. I don't know if you have had it, but it's fabulous. But my mom says, sometimes I eat too many of the red berries, and so I get another box, and I take some of the red berries out of the next box, and I put them into this box. And I said, Mom, I hear what you're saying, but eventually you're going to have a box that's going to have no red berries. You're only cheating, what? Yourself. So this is true. It's like we take the red berries from the next box and bring it into this one. And what you try to do, and what human nature is I'm going to try to shortcut my suffering. I'm going to try to find another way around this instead of going through it. And when you go through it, then you endure it. Human nature. What's the quickest way? What's the easiest way? What's the simplest way? What's the surest? What's the safest? And we think that's the smartest. And it might be, but the reality is sometimes the best way is not the quickest. Sometimes the best way is not the easiest, the simplest, the surest, or the safest. Sometimes God has a different plan, and it goes through difficulty, through trials. So don't cheat yourself. And here's the second thing I'd like to say. Don't protect yourself. And you say, well, Chris, now you're really off the rails. We have to protect ourselves. Well, I'm not, of course, talking about the coronavirus or any other way physically. Of course, you need to protect yourself. But I want to talk about how we take that instinct to protect ourselves and we do it to our inner self or our emotional self. Listen very carefully. When you go into a boxing ring and the match starts, one of the things the ref will tell you is protect yourself at all times. Protect yourself at all times. He's trying to tell you, even if I come in and separate you or whatever happens, you just always protect yourself because you don't ever want to be unprotected in case another person didn't hear. So protect yourself at all times. And that's kind of how we sort of live our life, protecting ourselves all the time. But if you protect your heart, listen, you're not going to love well. You're not going to care well. Because human nature is you protect your heart. What happens when something difficult happens to you? When someone hurts you, you start to shut it down. You start to close off your heart, right? In Proverbs, it says the heart is the wellspring of life. Things flow from there. Your exuberance about life flows from there. They say like your energy flows from there. How about this? Have you ever thought this to be true? You can have so much energy because you're enjoying your day. I've found this to be true. I'm having energy. I'm with my friends. We're out surfing. I hadn't thought about eating. I got all the energy in the world. I can go sun up to sundown, not even think about eating. I have other days. I'm at home. I'm bored. I've eaten, and then I ate again, and then I ate again, and I have no energy, and I take a nap, and I wake up, and I have less energy. Have you ever been there? See, energy is more than calories. Energy comes from the inside. This is so important. So what happens is when we're protecting ourselves, we're shutting ourselves down away from other people, away from getting hurt. What you start to realize is you're starting to shut down your life, which is why the next sentence in this story is so important. Jesus says this: if you try to save your life, you're going to lose it. Trying to protect yourself from ever getting hurt is going to shut you down, isolate you, close your energy, literally shut down your soul, was what Jesus was talking about there. If you lose your life, he said, then you're going to find it. You're going to have to stay open. You're going to have to stay exposed. So while, of course, physically, we don't want to be exposed to the coronavirus, I want you to know this. Emotionally, you have to stay exposed. People can hurt you. It's just how it is to stay in a loving flow of a relationship. What I wanted for this Easter series was simply this. Instead of us just watching the Easter story, reading about it, watching movies, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of movies out about it, especially now with everybody at home, just watching what, quote, Jesus did. I want us to do what the Apostle Paul encouraged, to participate in the Easter story, to see the suffering that we endure in life, whatever it is, as our own cross, something that we also have to carry, something that we have to go through. And so that, and this is what's important, we can be coming out on the other side as a resurrected and a brand new person. The story of the resurrection is the story of a new nature, the new you and the new me coming out on the other side. So when you suffer, watch your reactions and say to yourself, am I reacting just at a human level? Or is God taking me to a different level where I can react in a completely different way?